Time for business then. Eurozone finance ministers, they've been meeting in Brussels. Will's here. What have they got on their agenda?
Well, first, they've been reining in Spain. It depends which way you look at it, as whether Spain had a bit of a win on this one or whether it's been put under more pressure by the EU. Because originally, of course, earlier this month, the Spanish Prime Minister, Mariano Rajoy, he said that Spain's deficit was going to be 5.8%. Now, you can see the EU's target there was 4.4%. And now what we've got is somewhere in the middle. They've come to a compromise, the EU and Spain. What it does mean is that Spain is going to have to make additional cuts. So although up until last week the EU said it wasn't going to move from its original target, and it has, so in that way they've given some ground. At the same time, Spain does have to make more cuts on top of the austerity measures that they've already been making.
And meanwhile, the Greek bailout, done and dusted now?
Yes, well, the political side of it is. The finance ministers from the Eurozone states have all signed off on that on Monday. We are now just waiting for the IMF side of the deal to be put in concrete, I suppose you could say, finalised and signed off there. We're waiting for a meeting of the IMF on Thursday to see exactly how that goes through. Of course, money is already going through to Greece as half of the bailout deal was signed off in recent weeks already. So they are getting their cash. They are going to be able to pay their bills in the coming days. Now, today sees discussions on the European financial transaction tax by all 27 EU finance ministers. And to talk a bit about that, which is kicking off as we speak, almost in Brussels at the moment, we're joined by correspondent Maeve McMahon. Thanks very much for joining us, Maeve. It might be a few sparks there at the meeting this morning in Brussels. What are the divisions within the EU over this financial transaction tax?
Absolutely. Well, there's going to be a heated debate here in Brussels today. See, the most sensitive issue for the British government is, of course, related to the city of London, the biggest financial centre here in the European Union, employing thousands of people and contributing, of course, greatly to the UK economy. The UK is strongly opposing this tax. It's afraid that it could send financial activity out of London and over to places like New York and Singapore. And they're not alone in their arguments. The Swedes agree, and the Swedes actually implemented a similar tax back in the 80s, and seemingly a lot of financial activity did move away. That's why George Osborne last year, he said he would only agree to this tax if it was imposed on a global scale. This way the banks wouldn't be able to move away to more attractive tax climates. But the President of the Commission, Barroso, when presenting these proposals last year, said that an FTT was actually the only way to make sure that the banks pay their fair share, he said. He said it was crucial to ensure fair contribution from the financial sector to the cost of the financial crisis. We've heard derivatives, for example, being described before as financial weapons of mass destruction. So if this tax was introduced, we would see a 0.1% tax on them and, of course, on stocks as well. So it seems to be a simple way, according to the Commission, to raise some money for European countries, some 57 billion euros, a figure that by some has been sneered at, as that seems like a drop in the ocean in today's world, considering all the money that the EU needs for bailouts at the moment. But many say that the financial sector is under tax and it needs to play its fair share.
Maeve, thanks very much. We'll have to leave it there. That's Maeve McMahon, our correspondent there in Brussels. So, Will, these Eurozone announcements, are they having much effect on the markets?
Well, things are pretty chirpy with the opening of the European markets at the moment, as we can see. There we go, all opening in the green, led by banking stocks, in fact. So some optimism there, perhaps, from that announcement on the Greek deal. But it's also following on from the markets in Asia, which broadly opened up. Japanese shares pulled back a little after the Bank of Japan left its interest rates unchanged. Some interesting news was that Japan has received permission to buy Chinese government bonds. Now, not anyone can just go and buy Chinese government bonds, so this granting of permission by China is seen as an increasing of economic cooperation between the two countries, which do remain, disagreed on many issues.
Now, next for you, it's the latest round in the fight between the world's two largest aircraft manufacturers. And this time, in fact, it's Airbus that have come out on top. The World Trade Organization has ruled against its US rival Boeing, but it's not a clear-cut victory for the European firm, as Karen Creed explains.
Benefiting from millions, ultimately getting an unfair advantage over its European rival Airbus. The World Trade Organization has upheld a ruling that Boeing received illegal subsidies from the US government. It's the latest step in a long-running battle over subsidies for airplane sales. The European Commission, which complained to the WTO about Boeing's improper actions, hailed a victory on hearing the final ruling.
Today's appellate body ruling in the Boeing case clearly confirms what Europe has known all along, that the United States has been illegally funding Boeing with billions of dollars of subsidies for many years and continues to do so today.
The subsidies that Boeing received amounted to at least €3.8 billion between 1989 and 2006. Most of it came from NASA and was used to develop its 787 Dreamliner and other jet models. It is, however, much less than the €13.7 billion an earlier ruling found Airbus received from the EU. US officials have not let this go amiss following Monday's ruling against Boeing.
It's now clear that European subsidies to Airbus are far larger by multiples and more distortive than anything that the United States does for Boeing.
The US claims that while subsidies to Boeing cost Airbus 118 lost aircraft sales, EU subsidies for Airbus caused much more damage, resulting in 342 lost aircraft sales for Boeing. The final ruling won't end this trade spat. The US is currently trying to prevent Airbus from receiving similar low-interest loans to complete a new aircraft set to rival Boeing's Dreamliner.
There you go, that's the battle in the skies. But meanwhile, there's deal-making going on the ground as well.
Yeah, that's in the airports industry, I suppose you could call it. Aéroports de Paris, Paris's airports. They're a company, they don't just operate in Paris. That was in the olden days, I suppose. They're geographically based. They have airports all over North Africa as well. They're linking up with a Turkish company, TAV, which operates Istanbul International Airport, with an €800 million investment. And they're hoping to expand after they've had that link up in Russia, Central Asia and the Middle East. They'll be having 180 million passengers through their 37 airports altogether.
And finally, executive pay is back on the agenda. Volkswagen's chief exec, he's doubled his paycheck. Not bad going.
Yes, not bad at all. €17.5 million in
Cheap at half the
2011, yeah.
price.
Well, half the price was, yeah. I mean, he was earning €9.3 million the year before, so he wasn't doing too shabbily then. Martin Winterkorn, this is. He's taken a bit of heat in Germany because, he's now by far the highest earning CEO in the country, and the rest of the management board also doubled its pay. But the company is at least doing well. They sold 8.3 million vehicles in 2011, a record number, and they're hoping to increase that in 2012.
Nice work if you can get it. Will, thank you very much. That's Will Edwards here with The Business this morning. Latest news with Claire really shortly.